after she's done, we're going to ask and see who's going to be doing next. But before you do that, Lacey, it's live. I'll talk after she's done. Go ahead. No, I got you. All right, shoot live.
Hello, mic check. Okay, I want to sing a song before I get started tonight, real quick. Just listen to the words. Truth is, I'm tired of options of you. I'm trying to pray, but where are you? I'm on church now, hurt and abused, and I can't face what's left to do. Truth is, I'm weak, no strength to fight, no tears to cry, even if I try. But still my soul refuses to die. Lord, just one touch would save my life. So take me to the King. I don't have much to bring. My heart's torn in pieces. It's my offering. And leave me at the throne. And leave me there alone to gaze upon your glory and sing to you this song. So take me to the King. Yeah, church, it's time to stop playing games. We need a word to heal the people's pain. So Lord, speak right now and let it fall like rain. Lord, we're desperate for a change. So take me to the King. I don't have much to bring. My heart's torn in pieces, but it's my offering. And leave me at the throne, and leave me there alone to gaze upon your glory and sing to you. Take me to the King. Take me to the King. Yeah, I turned it off when I was singing. Hello? Hello? Okay. Can everybody hear me? Okay. I want to thank Uncle Bill for giving me the opportunity to come up here and do something. And I want to go in prayer real quick. Dear Heavenly Father, my God, I thank you for this opportunity, my God, for me to get up here and do something for you, God. I don't take it lightly, Jesus. Lord, I pray that you will have your way in this service, my God, and open the ears of the people so that they hear, my God, the same way that you spoke to me, my God, and just have your way in this service, my God. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm going to do tonight about Esther, and I had some things written down about Mordecai before Uncle Bill even asked me to say any or speak or do anything. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do about Mordecai. That's who I was going to do it about. And then as I got studying and into the Word, I just come to a stop sign, and I just didn't know where to go. There was so much detail. There was so much. I just didn't know where to go. I was lost in the Word. So, but then God gave me that song in my spirit to learn how to sing, because I wanted to learn it, but I never knew the chords. And I just began singing it. I don't even know how. I guess it was just God. But anyways, and then as I was reading, something stood out to me into the Word, and I just couldn't figure out how God was going to put it all together. It just didn't make sense to me, but I was looking with the natural eye. And I was sitting there, and all of a sudden I just said, wow. I was sitting there eating with Eddie, and I just said, wow. And he said, what is it? I said, it's like a puzzle going together in my head. It just is crazy. But, so it's going to be in Esther, if you want to open to Esther. But it's talking about the king. He was going to have a feast for 7 days, and the queen was having a feast. And the king's feast was just for the men, and the queen's feast was just for the women. And on the 7th day, he called for the queen to come unto him, and she wouldn't come to him. And her name was Vashti, I think. Queen Vashti, whatever. And so he sent for the men to go get her, and she wouldn't come. And whenever the men were saying, well, she won't come, all the people who was at his feast said, well, she's not only wronged you, king, but she's wronged us too, because all the women of the town will hear about what she done, and they'll despise their husbands, and they won't reverence them, and they won't listen to them. So make a decree and send out letters that all the men has to be the head of their household. And he said, okay. And he was to send Vashti away, and she was never to come before the king again. And she had to, he gave her royal estate to someone else. So he goes and he does all that, and there was, he sends the letters and everything, and there was this man, Mordecai. He worked in the palace, and he had an uncle who had a daughter. Her name was Hadassah, that was her Hebrew name, and Esther was her Parisian name. And so it was her first cousin. Some Bibles say it was her uncle, but I think it was her first cousin because it was her uncle's daughter. So anyways, he went and told her about what was going on and told her, don't let them know that you're a Jew. Don't reveal your heritage. Keep it a secret. Hide it. And so she did. And so the king sent out his officers to go get all the young, beautiful virgins and bring them to the house and let them begin purification process and beauty treatments. And whoever pleased the king the most was going to be the queen. So look at Esther chapter 2, verse 12. It says, before a girl's turn came to go into the king, she had to complete 12 months of beauty treatments prescribed for women, 6 months with oil and myrrh, and 6 months with perfume and cosmetics. And in my other Bible that I have, it says purification process instead of beauty process. And so I'd imagine all the women, they was just, they wasn't royal. They didn't have all the royal necessities that the king had. So I just imagined that they would bath in lakes, and they wasn't able to wash their clothes really. They just do the best they could for hygiene wise and for taking care of themselves and beautifying themselves. But when they come to the king, they were probably dirty. They were probably stinking. And when they came to the king, they had to go through a process for 1 year, it says, till they could even present themselves to the king. They couldn't even come to the king dirty and stinking. They had to be as the best they could be. And it says that they could ask for whatever they wanted was to be given to them so that they looked their best. They had to, as presentable as they wanted, they could go and say, give me this jewelry, give me these clothes, and they was given it just because they had to look their best for the king. And so she went through a process, and they presented her to the king. And look at verse 17 still in chapter 2. It says, now the king was attracted to Esther more than to any of the other women, and she won his favor and approval more than any of the other virgins. So he set a royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. So now Esther's the queen, and Mordecai, he's still there working in the castle or palace, whatever. I like to think it's a fairy tale castle queen. Anyways, but so he ended up hearing some people talking about killing the king, and he goes and he reports it to Esther, and she tells the king, and the king has these two men killed, and so the king has to promote a new guy. His name's Haman. He was in a very high position, and the king gave a command that all the king's servants who were in the gate had to bow and reverence Haman. But whenever the Haman came, Mordecai would not bow or reverence him, and they asked him why, and he ended up telling them that he was a Jew. And I was doing some more studying to find out why, and this man Haman was a Amalekite, or a Agite, or some other word, but Amalekite is what it says. And if you look at Exodus chapter 17, verse 16, it says, he said, "For hands were lifted up to the throne of the Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation." So Mordecai, and he was a Jew, and this man was Amalekite, and so they were enemies pretty much, because he was God's enemies was Mordecai's enemies because he was a Jew. And in Esther chapter 3, verse 5, it says, "When Haman saw that Mordecai would not kneel down or pay him honor, he was enraged. Yet having learned who Mordecai's people were, he scorned the idea of killing only Mordecai. Instead, Haman looked for a way to destroy all Mordecai's people, the Jews, throughout the whole kingdom." And skip down to verse 8. "Then Haman said to the king, 'This is a certain people dispersed and scattered among the peoples in all the province of your kingdom, whose customs are different from those of all the other people, and do not obey the king's law. It is not the king's best interest to tolerate them. If it pleases the king, let a decree be issued to destroy them, and I will put 10,000 talents of silver into a royal treasury for the man who carry out this business.' So the king took his signet ring from his finger and gave it to Haman, the enemies of the Jew. And he said, 'Keep the money and do to the people as you please.' So when he took the ring, he told him, 'Go ahead, write a letter,' but it's pretty much in his name. He has permission to use his ring, and everyone will know this is from the king because he got his ring from him to use it. And he said, 'Do pretty much whatever you want to do.' And so in verse 13, "These were written in the name of the king himself and sealed with his own ring. Dispatches were sent by carriers to all the king's province with the order to destroy, kill, and annihilate all the Jews, young and old, men and women, little children, all on a single day, the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar, and the plunder of their gods." So all this was to be done in one day. They didn't care, man, woman, boy, or girl. All the Jews were to be slaughtered. He wanted them all gone. So Mordecai heard about it, and he says he tore his clothes, and he put on sackcloth and ashes, and he laid outside the king's gate because he wasn't allowed to enter wearing what he was wearing. And he laid at the gate weeping and wailing because of all of these people were about to die. And Esther heard about Mordecai, and she grieved for him, and she sent him clothes, but he didn't accept them. And she sent her servant again to go and find out what was wrong and why he was so troubled. And he sent word back to Esther and a copy of the letter to show Esther about the destruction of the Jews. And he said to tell her to go into the king's presence, beg for mercy, and plead with him for her people. And he came back and he told her in Esther chapter 4, verse 10, she replies and she says, she instructed him to say to Mordecai, "All the king's officials and the people of the royal province know that for any man or woman who approach the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that he be put to death. The only exception to this is for the king to extend the golden scepter to him and spare his life. But 30 days have passed since I was called to go into the king." When Esther's words were repeated to Mordecai, he sent back this answer: "Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will rise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to a royal position for such a time as this?" Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai: "Go and gather together all the Jews who are in Susa, and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maids will fast as you do. And when this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish." So she was going to risk her life before the king to help save her people. And she said, "If I die, I die, but I'm going to do it." So, I'm getting lost here. So, on the third day after the fast, her risking her life, she went to the inner court before the king, and he was sitting on his royal throne. And when he seen her, he held out his scepter, and she approached, and he said, "What is your request?" And she said, "If it pleases the king, come, you and Haman, today to a banquet I have prepared." So he sent for Haman at once, and they went to the banquet. And the king asked her again at the banquet, "What is your request now?" And she said, "Come tomorrow to the banquet. Then I will answer you." Now, Haman left, and he went on his way home, and he seen Mordecai crying, laying at the gate. And it made him mad because he walked by, and Mordecai didn't even acknowledge him. He didn't look up, and you were supposed to reverence him and bow, but he wouldn't do it just because they were enemies pretty much. So he went home and he told his wife and his friends, he said, "I have so much accomplished in my life. I went to the banquet today that the queen gave for the king, and I was the only other man who was invited, and I'm going again tomorrow. But still, I'm not satisfied when I see that Jew laying at the gate." And the woman, his wife, and his friend said, "We'll make a gallows 75 feet high and go tomorrow to the king and ask him, can you have him hung?" And so Haman goes. So he said, "Okay, I'll do it." And he has the gallows. He starts having it made that night. And during the night, the king couldn't sleep. And he tossed and turned. He ended up having someone come and read him the records of everything that goes on into the kingdom. And it said that Mordecai was the one who told about the two chamberlains were planning to kill the king. And he said, "What honor and what reward did we give this man for this?" And they said there was no honor given. So the next morning, Haman goes into the king, and the king says, "What am I to do for the man who honors the king and who's helped the king?" And Haman thought he was talking about himself, and he said, "Go take a robe of the king's and put it on him, and put him up on the king's horse, and let him ride through the town, and let the people honor him." And he said, "Okay, that's what I'll do. Now go get Mordecai and go and put him on the horse." And he was going in to ask to have Mordecai killed, so he was so mad, but he went and did what the king said. So after they did all that, they end up coming to the banquet the queen had. And the king asked her, "Now what is your petition and what is your request?" And in chapter 7, verse 3, the Queen Esther answered, "If I have found favor with you, O king, and if it pleases your majesty, grant me my life. This is my position, and spare my people. This is my request, for I and my people have been sold for destruction and slaughter and annihilation. If we had merely been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept quiet, because no such distress would justify disturbing the king." And the king asked Queen Esther, "Who is he? Where is the man who has dared to do such a thing?" And Esther said, "The adversary and enemy is this vile Haman." And Haman was terrified before the king and queen. The king got up in a rage, and he left his wine and went out into the palace garden. But Haman, realizing that the king had already decided his fate, stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life. Just as the king returned from the palace garden to the banquet hall, Haman was fallen on the couch where Esther was reclining. And the king explained, "Will he even molest the queen while she is with me in the house?" And as soon as the words left the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And then one of the who attended the king said, "A gallows 75 feet high stands by Haman's house, and he made it for Mordecai, who spoke up to help the king." The king said, "Hang him on it." So they hanged Haman and on the gallows that he prepared for Mordecai. Then the king's fury subsided. So he said, okay, and he killed the man, but his word was already writ. Pretty much it was written in stone, because he gave the ring and the signet ring, and he couldn't revoke what he done said about killing the Jews. So he gave another command to go and take the ring, and he gave Esther all the position pretty much of Haman. He gave it to Esther, and he gave her his ring, and said, write another letter. And the letter said that they were able to fight back for their life. They didn't have to just be killed and be slaughtered. They were able to fight back for their life. And on chapter 8, verse 11, it said, the king's edict granted the Jews in every city the right to assemble and protect themselves, to destroy, kill, and annihilate any armed force of any nationality or province that might attack them and their women and their children, and to plunder the property of the enemies. So they fought back, and they ended up winning. In chapter 9, verse 11, it says, the number of those slain in the citadel of Susa was reported to the king that same day. The king said to Queen Esther, the Jews have killed and destroyed 500 men and the 10 sons of Haman in the city of Susa. What have they done in the rest of the king's province? Now what is your petition? It will be given to you. And what is your request? And it will also be given. Okay, I'm not done yet. I'm just thinking. So that's why Esther, she's a hero. This is about heroes. So Esther is a hero because she saved her entire heritage, nationality of people. But I noticed into the whole book of Esther, everything had to be brought to the king's, before the king. Before anything could be done, he had to ask, can we kill these people? Yes, you can. Can you save these people? Yes, you can. Everything, they had to go to the king before anything could happen. They had to get his permission. But in the beginning, before she even went to the king, she had to be purified. She had to go through a process. She had to be so before she can even go to the king, or else she wouldn't have been able to approach him. And they wanted all the Jews killed. And I started thinking, Jesus wasn't born yet into this. And had all the Jews been killed, he come from Jews. Mary and Joseph, they would have been killed. That was the devil's way of trying to get the plan of Jesus, the cross, not even in existence. And so she was purified and she went to the king. Thank God she was. Because if she wasn't, then what would have happened to us? And Jesus, he was born, he come to the cross and died for us just so he can wash us clean, so he could give us the purification that we need, and that go through that process for us. When we ask him to forgive us, he washes us clean of all our sins, all of our dirt, our stink, just like Esther. She came, she was washed clean, and she probably stayed clean. She probably didn't put her dirty clothes back on. She stayed clean. She wore, she kept her royal robe on. She adopted the ways of the kingdom because she didn't know the ways before. But then whenever she went into the palace, she learned, okay, this is how royalty acts. This is how royalty lives. This is what royalty does. And she adopted those ways. And so I began to think, and I said, God, how is all this going to tie in together? But he said, when you go and you take a shower and you wash your body and you get clean, you don't pick up your dirty clothes and put them on, because that's pointless. What was the point of taking a shower? Your clothes are stinking. And I thought about, if I was gone and Eddie was at home and he come in and he took a shower and he put his dirty clothes back on, I'd walk in and I'd look at him and say, why didn't you take a shower? I don't see that his body's clean. I just see he's wearing dirty clothes. And so that's how it is. We say, God, forgive me, wash me clean, and I'm clean, but we put our dirty clothes back on. And we want to be ready at all times so we can go to the king. If there's anything going on in our life, if somebody's sick, I don't want to hear what the doctor says, but let me go to the king. Let me talk to the king. That's why we have to be ready. We have to stay clean. It's a daily process. We have to constantly purify ourselves and be purified. And we don't pick up our dirty clothes. We put them in the washer and we wash them so we have clean clothes. We don't put them back on. And if you don't get nothing out of this, just, I hope this is the only thing that gets into your mind is, what is the point of taking a shower but putting dirty clothes back on? It's pointless. That's it.